This is an executive order. Discharges your Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, and your Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, to begin a process that will hopefully result in the creation of an American sovereign wealth fund.
It's a very exciting event. We're going to have a sovereign wealth fund, which we've never had. We have a lot of things that create wealth, and you're seeing that over the last 2 weeks. I think we've created more wealth. Other people have created de-wealth, the people, my predecessors. We're creating a lot of wealth. Scott, maybe you'd like to say something about it, and I'd ask also Howard to say something about it.
Yes, sir. This is very exciting. We're going to stand this thing up within the next 12 months. We're going to monetize the asset side of the U.S. balance sheet for the American people. We're going to put the assets to work, and I think it's going to be very exciting. We're going to study best practices as done around the world. It'll be a combination of liquid assets, assets that we have in this country as we work to bring them out for the American people.
The extraordinary size and scale of the U.S. government and the business it does with companies should create value for American citizens. If we are going to buy 2 billion COVID vaccines, maybe we should have some warrants and some equity in these companies and have that grow for the help of the American people. So I bring all these things together. I think Scott and I will create an amazing sovereign wealth fund for you, sir.
So other countries have sovereign wealth funds, and they're much smaller countries, and they're not the United States. We have tremendous potential in this country, tremendous. You're seeing that, what's happened just in a short period of time. And as an example, TikTok, we're going to be doing something perhaps with TikTok, and perhaps not. If we make the right deal, we'll do it, otherwise we won't. But I have the right to do that, and we might put that in the sovereign wealth fund, whatever we make, or if we do a partnership with very wealthy people, a lot of options, but we could put that as an example in the fund, and we have a lot of other things that we could put in the fund. And I think in a short period of time we'd have one of the biggest funds, and some of them are pretty large, I must tell you. Some of like the Saudi Arabia fund is on the large side, but eventually we'll catch it. But we're going to create a lot of wealth for the fund, and I think it's about time that this country had a sovereign wealth fund. And these two gentlemen and some others are going to work with them very closely, and they'll be heading it up, and they're going to do a great job. Two highly respected people that have done unbelievably well in the world, in the real world. So that's a big deal, huh?
Yes, sir. I think it's going to create value and be of great strategic importance.
But exactly what is a sovereign wealth fund? Let's break it down. Sovereignty is the power of a nation to self-govern. Nations utilize this power by making and applying laws, imposing taxes, engaging in war, and participating in trade. As a result, just as Adam Smith predicted, sovereign nations can and do gain wealth. So, a sovereign wealth fund is a pool of money owned and used by a national government for its own investment purposes. Governments invest this money in companies and real estate all over the world to benefit their country's economy and citizens. So where exactly does this money come from in the first place? Well, the nation accumulates money in its central bank reserves from budget and trade surpluses or other sources of revenue. Most efficiently managed governments do not have big surpluses of money in their reserves unless they have abundant income. For example, many of the oil-rich countries, such as Norway, Russia, and countries in the Middle East, have created sovereign wealth funds to invest the money coming into their countries from oil. The first country in the world to start a sovereign wealth fund was Kuwait. Right after Kuwait discovered oil, it decided to establish a fund in 1953 to invest its excess oil revenues. It soon became one of the wealthiest nations in the world. In 1990, the tiny Persian Gulf country was invaded and occupied by Iraq, and then freed by 35 nations led by the United States. And yes, this war really was about oil and the wealthy funds that come with it. With a population of only 4.1 million, Kuwait remains sovereign today, and its sovereign wealth fund is estimated to be one of the largest funds in the world, sitting at over $500 billion. East Asian countries like China, Hong Kong, and Singapore are also known for having sovereign wealth funds. Unlike their oil-wielding counterparts, these countries got their excess reserves from the Asian export boom. As they began exporting more than they imported, the East Asian countries had a lot of money lying around. So, they set up their sovereign wealth funds to send their excess funds to financial markets around the world and make more and more funds. However, just as sovereign wealth funds represent the peak of globalization and a great way for a nation to diversify its wealth, they may represent the low point of globalization as well in a post-COVID world. As global trade is clearly facing steep hurdles and a tense political climate, sovereign wealth funds may be seen more as the minions of nations out to do their bidding, as opposed to independent merchants just looking to make a buck. For example, the delicate relations between China and other countries might make foreign governments think twice before taking cash from one of China's sovereign wealth funds. Gary Smith, managing director at Sovereign Focus, a sovereign wealth fund advisement firm, puts it this way. In the current climate, it is unlikely that a state-owned investment vehicle, aka a sovereign wealth fund, will be able to achieve a better overall assessment than that of the sovereign nation that owns it. In other words, if my country has conflict with your country, then my financial market has conflict with your country's sovereign wealth fund. While the fate and fortune of sovereign wealth funds remains uncertain, their success as an important global investment vehicle remains undisputed. Collectively, they are twice the size of all hedge funds combined, have power to move the overall market, and impact global economic and political policy the world around. Thanks, Adam Smith.